My name is Chloe, and this is the Feed or Flow podcast, where you'll find authentic conversations on how to get your period back and restore your metabolism from years of disordered eating, low-calorie diets, and excessive exercise regimes. No trendy diets of celery juice and broccoli sprouts will be found here. Rather, my mission is to teach you balance and how the foods you've most likely cut out of your diet are the very ones that are essential for health. It's time we stop fearing food and embrace all that it can do for us. Food freedom, vivacious health, and a monthly menstrual cycle is possible, and I'm going to show you how to achieve this type of wellness without obsession. And so let's dive into the whole binging and what gets people into this whole binging state, because I feel like a lot of that is driven by doing exactly what we're talking about, which is listening to other people and, going on to TikTok and watching these 1,200 calorie day, what I eat in the day videos, and wanting to emulate that. But then they find themselves fist deep into the chip bag at night and they think something's wrong with them. So can you explain to the listeners what's going on here and maybe enlighten them on why their body's actually protecting them and not doing something wrong?
Yeah. So if you have any sort of history of dieting or weight loss and you're binging, take a just a second to recap your history. Think about when your binging started, when you're if you're dealing with binging. I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about what actually defines a binge, because there's confusion there as well. Do you think that would be useful?
Yeah, you can go into that. I'm sure they would like to hear that.
Yeah, I like to do that because I think many times people label just eating more than they feel comfortable with as a binge, when that's a little bit different, although there's similar root causes, restriction, food guilt, that sort of thing. But when we're talking about binge eating, it really is like an episode of out of control eating, and it very much feels like your brain does not want to be doing it, but your body is taking over and you have no control. And it's like you're fighting it. And as much as you don't want to be doing it, something switches and you just feel like you can't control yourself, and you'll do, very unusual things to get food. You will do basically anything you can to get any sort of food. It doesn't even matter sometimes if the food is tasty to you or even edible, or even if it's yours. Sometimes you'll steal food.
You're eating the table at this point.
Yeah, you'll eat literally anything.
Yeah.
And then you kind of come out of it and it's there's an immense wave of shame and guilt and stuff that hits you. So it's very much like this episode of eating out of body experience type of situation. You feel like you're in a daze and it's very uncomfortable. Whereas extreme hunger, which can also happen coexisting with binging, or when you're recovering from an eating disorder, you're just very hungry all the time. You feel like you could just constantly be eating, but you're making an intentional choice to eat. It's a little bit different. Although you might be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm eating so much. I hear a lot of people say I'm binging. And then when we get into it, it's like, no, this is actually extreme hunger. You need to listen to this, and that's good, but it's a little bit different than a binge. So if you're dealing with the binge, like I'm discussing, and extreme hunger as well, they're both usually results of undereating in your past. So for people who are binging and thinking it's a willpower issue, take a look at your history and ask yourself, do I have a history of weight loss? Do I have a history of any sort of intentional weight loss or dieting, or even just weight loss, even if it was unintentional? I've had clients who, got sick or became depressed or had a really traumatic experience happen in their life. They lost a bunch of weight. People started complimenting them and they got really attached to that lower weight. And then, shortly after that, they kind of they tried to kind of maintain that, and then the binging started. So
not having a period is also another sign. Just want to throw that in there. Period's all of a sudden gone, it's not for a random reason. So that's another sign for you to look at.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And those often coexist, missing periods and binge eating, which is why I focus on those two things a lot. So if you have that in your history, then we have to start thinking about, okay, why did I start binge eating after I started with these intentional calorie deficit? Maybe someone in this position might not even see it as restriction, because they might just see it as normal. Lots of people diet. Dieting is healthy. And most people think that mindset is changing now, but that's kind of been rhetoric is that, dieting is normal, healthy, and we all do it and we have to do it or else we're all going to become quote unquote obese and spiral into terrible health. So once you start binging, I talked earlier about hunger hormones being dysregulated, and it basically is the result of you continuously, and there's kind of different, I look at it as two different factors. There's the physiological factors and then there's the mental factors. So I talk a lot about physical restriction versus mental restriction, and they're both usually coexisting. So when you have a history of dieting, using exercise to control your weight or compensate for eating, you are going to be pursuing a deficit for a long period of time, meaning you're eating less than your body requires every single day. So you're going to have to ignore hunger cues in order to do that. You're going to get hungry. You're not going to listen to them. So, your body will kind of be like, okay, well, I guess she's not going to feed us. She's not going to feed us. It's going to start to suppress things like you talked about, suppressing metabolism, slowing down reproduction, slowing down digestion to conserve energy. But eventually it can only do that for so long before it's like, okay, this is getting serious now.
It's survival.
Is there a famine? Are we okay? And our bodies are very afraid of a famine because historically that has been in our past. Food shortages have been in our past, evolutionarily. So eventually if you don't listen, your body's going to start sending you extremely strong primal survival drive types of hunger cues. If you're not going to listen to the more subtle ones, your body's going to kind of take over and be like, screw it. If you're not going to do it, like, we're going to have to take over. And that's where the binge urge comes, where it feels so out of control.
And it usually happens at night, I feel like, because we kind of let our guard down. We're a lot more tired. Cortisol's lower. So it's easier, I feel like, for the body to kind of get you to do that at night. It's kind of what I say. It can happen at any time, but I feel like nighttime is usually when the body's like, this is our time. Let's go for it.
And often it does happen in these situations where quote unquote willpower is lowered. And so that's where people will get into this or consume content or get into this thought process of, oh, this is all about a willpower issue. And then we'll get into, okay, so then the solution has to be finding ways to cope, to not eat when I get this urge and instead do something else, or I have to try to find a way to enhance my willpower. I know for me, that's something I was constantly looking into, because you're at the end of the day, there's such thing as decision fatigue, there's willpower. There's research on this in some schools of thought is a limited resource. So, we go throughout the day, we have to make a lot of decisions. We might have stressors. We're working. At the end of the day, like you said, our guard is a little bit down. So willpower is lowered. Other situations, like I know for me, I was binging through college. So if I was, I had a really big day ahead of me of studying and classes, and I felt really stressed out. Some mornings, if I was really having a bad day, I would just say, screw it to the whole day. Because I was feeling so stressed out of the day ahead of me. I would skip classes and just binge the whole day and I would think, oh, I'm using food to cope. I'm emotionally eating. I'm stressed. So I'm using food to cope. But the truth is, I was constantly using willpower at all times throughout the day to force myself to exercise, to force myself to stick to the amount of calories that I was supposed to be eating in the day. And when that willpower when I was pushed over the edge and willpower wasn't enough anymore, because I'd already used it up so much on the restrictions, other things in my life that I had to use it on, I eventually would binge. My body would win out. And it was actually a good thing that my body would win out, because I needed the food. But that's the piece that I was missing. All I thought about was, well, my willpower is the issue, so I need to just find a way to strengthen that. When in reality, we shouldn't have to be using willpower 24/7 all the time during the day. It's not realistic. And we shouldn't be using willpower to deny our bodies what they need. That's not a good use of willpower. We could use it on something else where it's actually promoting our overall health and well-being,
Well, totally. And I love the word that you're using before, which was just survival. Like, it's a survival mechanism. So I think that's important, because a lot of people, when they go through this, which understandably, it's really daunting when you're going through it and you don't understand. And it's like, why is this happening? What am I doing? And a lot of people will turn against their body and go, see, this is why I can't trust my body. But I know with me, I really try and help my clients understand that this is like, your body is on your side. Like, this is amazing, especially when like edema or things like that happen and everyone's like, I'm having edema. Why am I having edema? And I'm like, great, amazing. I'm so glad to hear. Like, I know it's uncomfortable, but this is telling me, hey, your body's actually going through the recovery process. Your body is prioritizing your survival right now by having extreme hunger or by making you binge eat. And so it's always on your side. It's evolution has evolved us this way to want to keep us alive. So you have to trust that your body is constantly trying to get back into balance. I studied a lot of anatomy and physiology in university. And we studied so much about all the negative feedback systems in your body that are designed to just continually be getting this feedback of like, where are we? Where is our stress levels? Where is cholesterol? Where is inflammation? Where is all this stuff? And it's constantly doing that so that it can tell the brain to start creating different hormones, to start doing different things, all to try and keep you in balance. And
Yeah.
so when you're going through this process, as scary as it is, you have to just thank your body for doing it and for being like,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. Like extreme hunger, I changed my whole mindset on it in the beginning. Because I understood why it was happening. Before I went through recovery, I was like, okay, I know there's going to be this thing called extreme hunger. This is why it's happening. So when it happened, I would be like, yes, like I'm so glad that I have this bottomless pit feeling right now, which means that I can just eat more food without my stomach feeling like really weighed down by it. This is such a blessing because I know that this will stop once my body becomes nutrition rehabilitated. And so can you also share a little bit maybe into this whole idea of like people really fearing that like it's not going to ever stop and they're going to continually gain weight their whole life, and also them now thinking that they are emotional eaters and that they've now traded, I hear this all the time, they've now traded one disorder for the next. So can you kind of share some thoughts on that?
Thanks for listening to this short clip from the Feed or Flow podcast. To listen to the rest of the show, head on over to your favorite podcast app like iTunes or Spotify. If your period has gone MIA, you're going to want to get her back. She's important for your health and misses you dearly. I've created a juicy online course designed to teach you everything I wish I knew about getting my period back, restoring my metabolism, and cultivating a healthy, nourishing relationship with food. The Get Your Flow On course is designed to empower and inspire you to achieve full recovery. Head on over to www.flowwithchlo.com to sign up.